Today on Inspection Empire Builder Podcast, we're talking about growing a business and scaling it with purpose. Welcome to the show. I'm so glad you guys tuned in today. On today's episode, we're talking about growing a business intentionally and what that looks like versus just haphazardly spilling through it. And on today's episode, we have Kurvin on the show. Hey, Kurvin, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely, man. This is I know you're out in the field right now, and you're in the van, and we're talking all things growing a business. Where are you located at?
Yeah, so I'm based out of Salem, Oregon, and I basically travel about an hour in every direction. So I go from Portland down to Eugene, all the way out to the coast, and I get to see some of those whales migrating every now and then.
That is awesome. You know, I was born in Portland, Oregon, and my grandmother still lives there. In fact, she turns 100. I think tomorrow is her 100th birthday. And so I actually have family up there right now. And I go up and visit Portland on a fairly regular basis.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, it's such a beautiful area. And I love doing the inspections because in a couple days here, I'll be out in near Silver Falls where we have 10 of the most beautiful waterfalls around. And I'm doing an inspection there. And then go out to the coast and I'll sit on a beach and I'll just watch the whales migrate while I'm typing up my inspection report. So it's just a beautiful area to actually do the inspections. And we get some really awesome, unique houses because Portland has been around for so long. It's not uncommon for us to go into some of these 100 and 150-year-old houses and see some of these really old, unique building styles.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, who wouldn't want to sit on the beach and type a report out where you're watching the whales come by? I mean, that sounds so epic. That's amazing. And so, you're from Texas too, I heard.
Yeah. So I'm from Texas. So I'm used to having all that flat land and East Texas. So we'd see all the blue bonnets and things like that, but still not as spectacular as out here.
Yeah, for sure. And then, and Oregon is so green and lush and it rains a lot, but it's green and lush, and there's a variety of landscape. And if you go eastern, it gets kind of dry and high deserty, and if you go out to the west, it gets to the coast. And there's just a variety of landscape to look at, and a variety of housing, like you said, because they've been building out there for a long time, and it's definitely a lot of variety and a lot of beautiful scenery. I can imagine typing up reports sitting under waterfalls and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So you moved from Texas out to Oregon. What drove you to go to Oregon specifically?
Well, this is where my family lives. And so we knew we were wanting to get out of Texas, and we got an offer on our company that we had out there, and I just couldn't say no to it. So we took the offer, moved out here, and we were really fortunate because we knew that we needed we were going to start another business out here. We didn't want to live in the little town where my parents live at. It's called Cresswell, so it's kind of a small town. Only maybe 1,000 people live there. And so we looked at a map and said, okay, Salem is an hour to Portland, hour to Eugene, hour to the coast. So we can effectively get 80% of Oregon's population if we just base ourselves in Salem. And so before we even moved out here, we already knew we were going into home inspections, and the planning process for all of it took us about 6 months of properly planning. And then we went into our execution phase about 3 months before we actually got our license. But yeah,
that's awesome. And so why home inspection, man? But why home inspection?
Yeah, well, a home inspection, I've been doing construction since I was 15. My first job was working in construction, and the last company I had, it was all large scale remodeling and doing lots of investment properties. And I just didn't want to keep swinging a hammer. I've broken every single finger. I've shot nails in my hands. And I said, okay, how can I apply my knowledge and yet not have to go through all that pain? And then subsequently, my wife owned a real estate company out in Texas. And so she sold that as well. And we said home inspections is the perfect pairing where she's able to apply her knowledge and manage all of our sales and already knows how realtors think. and I'm able to really do a good job inspecting a home because I already know how it goes together. And I only really needed to study up on the more particular building styles for this area.
That's fantastic, man. Yeah. It's a good business to be in. I've been in it now for about 5 years, and I really love it. And it's a good lifestyle, and it's an opportunity to make a decent living if you're doing it the right way.
Hmm.
And I have a bunch of employees now that are also able to make a decent living, and they have a good living, and they have a good life. And it's a great business to be in. And I've owned a few different companies, and it sounds like you have as well. And this has been my favorite business to own in my whole life. And it's been a good run for sure. And I know you've had a good run too. I know your business has grown and scaled quickly. And we were talking before we offline, and it didn't grow by accident. You've been very intentional. And I'd love for you to talk about that, man. Like how is it you were intentional? What are some of the steps you did to be intentionally growing?
Yeah, so we got officially licensed on June 8th, 3 years ago. So we're just shy of 3 years. And for us, I was very fortunate in that we had a good company. And so we were going into this business with having additional funds so that I wasn't working a second job. I wasn't trying to make ends meet for the family or anything. We were able to actually develop a proper business plan and execute it. And because of that, we can accelerate then our growth because we have that extra time and knowledge. And for those of you out there who, are trying to get by, have a full-time job, and you want to transition into being your own boss and everything, this is a fantastic industry to get into, but it is going to take you a little bit longer just because you can only dedicate so much time to it. So for us, nine
Right.
months before we started with our business plan. That's when we started getting ideas of, okay, what do we want it to be? And for me, it's eventually I want to sell the company off, and I didn't want the company tied directly to me. And so we set it up with the name Ugly Duckling. So we wanted it to be unique, something that feels good for us and everything. Since we would do these flips, we take these ugly houses, turn them into beautiful swans, just like the story of the ugly duckling. And so we started doing all that process. So we set up Spectora, I believe that's our main software program, and our website 3 or 4 months before we even started. We started interviewing call centers. We tried doing call centers. I don't like that at all. It didn't work out for us. So we went ahead and hired virtual assistants instead. So we had all of the infrastructure already in place started. And then I took my test, got that license, and I knew when we submitted our license, it would take about 3 to 4 weeks, is what they were telling us. So at that point, I said, okay, let's start pulling the trigger on marketing. Now, we're not allowed to solicit business when we're not licensed. So we weren't soliciting for business. We were simply saying, hey, we're coming soon. And so,
Yeah, that's a good way to do it.
yeah, we went around to all the realtors and said, hey, this is how we're different. And instead of, just offering home inspections, we diversified ourselves because we knew that home inspections alone, we wouldn't be able to make very much. So we came up with a package. We call it our premier package, which includes radon, septic, wood destroying organism, a free reinspect, and the inspection. And so we came up with a bundled price, and that's what about probably 70% of all of our clients go with. And it is an inflated price. And that's why our average inspection cost is for this month, we're at $988 an inspection, is because it includes all of that. So we started kind of running through some of those numbers, getting that, and talking with realtors, getting our name out. And so for the week before we got our license, we had like 2 or 3 calls saying, hey, are you ready? And we're like, nope, not yet. And then we got our license, and the very next day we had our very first inspection. And I remember it was
That's
so
awesome.
awesome. Yeah, we set a goal for our first month. We wanted to do $5,000 in revenue, and we did $5,005. So we barely hit that goal, but we still hit it, which being a
That's
new
awesome.
business is fantastic to hear.
Oh, absolutely. And I love how you were so intentional on starting this thing. Like you did the pre-planning 9 months ahead of time. You're putting the business plan in place. You're putting your marketing plan in place. You're putting your staffing in place. You're getting all your systems and processes dialed in. And then when you finally launch, you're able to launch actually like a coherent company that's actually launching in a much bigger way. Whereas most people that get into home inspections, They're more of a technician mind, not a business owner mind, is typically how it starts. And the technician is like, well, I can inspect a house. And so it's one guy kind of haphazardly stumbling into the business. And as they go, they're learning along the way. But because of your business experience, and I found this to be true for me as well, which is my company, it popped off. It grew really quickly and scaled quickly because of my previous business experience and knowing what it takes to run and operate a business. And so you came into the table with that too. So your stuff popped off quickly as well. And it's interesting to see that. And like you mentioned something, building it, like you had the name and you thought maybe one day I'm going to sell it. And building it with the exit in mind is something that I think every business owner should do. Because I've had businesses that had my name on it, and I've had businesses that didn't have my name on it, and it wasn't structured the right way for me to be able to easily sell it. And so I did the same thing with this company as well. When I started mine, was I'm going to name it the right way, and I'm going to build it and so that it has the exit in mind, which means everything needs to be done in such a way that it doesn't require me to be part of it when I finally get it scaled big enough. And I love how you're doing that too, man. That's such a healthy way to build and grow a business.
Oh, absolutely. And it takes a lot of time and dedication at the beginning. It's
Yep.
funny. We don't say that we work 9 to 5, we're start to finish. And that's really what being a business owner is about. If you think that you can take off Super Bowl Sunday because you want to watch the game, well, if you're still new, you've got to be marketing. It's instead of watching the
Yep.
game, throw a Super Bowl party and invite all these realtors over. You then networking, and also it's a write-off because it's a tax thing. And so it's been phenomenal. And my wife and I, we just went to Europe for a couple weeks at the beginning of May, and it felt good that we're a business that's not even 3 years old, and yet we can go off and see beautiful places and come back to a thriving business. And that takes time. It takes systems and setup. It takes a lot of patience and really kind of thinking through things. And an example of
Yep.
to actually think through things is, I mentioned that we offer free reinspects. And if you actually do the math of it, we don't make that much money if everybody is taking advantage of all the services that we offer for our Premier. But the reality is only maybe 1 out of 10 people actually do their free reinspect. So now when you take
Oh, wow.
that potential price of saying, okay, should I offer a free reinspect? Well, if we offer it right up
Like you
front, we're
buried into a
already
package. I love that.
exactly. And then on top of that, we're now able to use that as a marketing tool of, hey, apples to apples, we might be the same price as this other guy, but ask him how much he's going to charge if you want him back out again. Ask him if he's going to
Yep.
do a WDO. So we're able to close more deals that way. And the reality is our actual the time that we invest in it isn't that much because again, about 1 out of 10 actually do the free reinspect. And I know that's going to shift a little bit as markets are shifting because it's been more of a buyer or a seller's market, and so there's been less
Yep.
negotiations. But still, that's the kind of thought process you go into is if I offer this, then what will happen and what is the potential? And that's the whole reason why all these big companies want you to buy warranties. If everybody used a warranty up, those companies would be bankrupt in a heartbeat. But they know
Yep.
even if there's a legitimate claim, they're not going to get near as many people. So we took that free reinspect as a marketing tool to help differentiate us from other people. But then we also knew that it really wasn't going to be costing us much in the end.
I love that. What other packages do you have, or you just have the one?
So we wanted to kind of think about it like this: when a client is given too many options, then they get overloaded and they don't know what to think. So we've come up with
Oh, yeah.
just two
People say no to
packages.
what's confusing. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
we have just two packages. We have our comprehensive inspection, and then we added a la carte to that, so you can get a radon separate, do a sewer scope separate, and just kind of price it all by itself. Or you can go with our Premier, and that includes all of that. And then in addition to that, here in Oregon, wells are required to be water tested. There's no license. It takes 5 minutes to do. So our ancillaries are really where we make that money. And for me, my most favorite inspection to do is a manufactured home out in the middle of nowhere because we're going to team up with manufactured home certs, Harold and all them over there. We're doing the foundation certificate. We're doing a premier inspection. We're doing a well inspection, a water test, and we're doing a septic inspection. And all of those are things that we're licensed for. And that right there is about 2,000 to 2,500 for 4 to 5 hours worth of work. And so
Wow, that's
we
awesome.
offer all of those different types of services, but it really kind of comes down to just two packages.
I love that. Yeah. So did you start day one with all these ancillaries on there, or did you add some as you were going?
We added some as we went because for like septics, we have to be licensed through the state of Oregon. Well inspections, we needed a lot more experience, and there isn't a license for a 2-hour flow test here in Oregon. But we made sure we had the home inspector license, and then we jumped right into radon sewer right off the bat because we saw those were the number one most requested ancillaries. Since then, we've gotten
Yep.
licensed for or certified for mold and doing air quality testing. And so all of these extra services took us about a year and a half to actually start having all of those. But day one, we made sure that we weren't doing just home inspections. The feedback that we got when we were doing all those realtor drop-bys was, hey, I want one person that can do the radon septic and do the home inspection. That saves me time as a realtor. So we said, okay, great. That's
Yep.
exactly what we did. And then we went back and figured out how to do all of that stuff. So when you're getting into home inspections, you do want to diversify yourself because if you're only sticking to just home inspections, you're going to be on this roller coaster where during the summer you're super busy and then it just drops back off again. But here in Oregon, I'm super busy with home inspections during the summer. During the spring and winter, I'm super busy with mold inspections. Our home inspections drop quite a bit, but that's at the end of the rainy season when all the mold comes out. And so you
Yeah.
diversify yourself, and now you have all these little ups and downs actually equal just a straight linear line. So you're not riding that roller coaster as much.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah. So when I started, I just started just doing home inspection, and I knew I was going to add ancillaries. And so I started doing home, and I started paying attention when I first started. And I was like, okay, what am I seeing out here more often than not? And so I thought, man, in our market, I saw WDO, and then I saw sewer scoping, and then I saw radon. Those are the three that I saw the most on. And so then I was like, okay, which one am I going to take first? Which one makes the most sense for me? And so I did some math and looked at barriers to entry and licensing and all those other things. And it's like, I can scope sewers without a license. And there's an equipment that you have to buy, but it's not insurmountable. And so I added that pretty quickly. And then we started adding radon because that was an easy one to add on. And then went through the process of getting licensed. Same thing. I just started just right away. It was like, boom, boom, boom. I got to add ancillaries. Now we're the one-stop shop. And,
Mhm.
in my market. And so we do all the things that you're talking about. Like, we don't do septic because we don't have very many of them here, but we kind of do almost everything else you got listed. And just over the time, we just kept adding. And what it does is it bumps your ticket price up and it increases your margin percentage. Because
Yeah.
ancillaries, in my market at least, I make a higher percentage of margin on my ancillaries than I do on my actual home inspection.
Oh, absolutely. I've heard it said over and over again, and it's so true for us. Home inspections are our loss leader. Like if you book us for just a regular home inspection, it's 2 hours worth of work for $450. Book me for a mold inspection. We
Mm-hmm.
got one this afternoon. It's $550 and it'll take me not even an hour. Yeah, I'll have about $100 in
Yep.
lab fees, but that means that I'm still netting $450 for an hour worth of work. Book me for doing the consultation. This is something we don't hear very often is we market a lot to contractors too. And so they'll call me up and they'll be like, hey, how do we do this? Can you double check what this is and this is? And we stay within our lane for the most part. So we don't get into the technical, the HVAC, electrical, but I know very well how to build a deck. And Anachi's been great in having all the classes and everything on how to inspect those. So,
Yep.
I just take
Yep.
that knowledge and say, okay, this is what I expect to see. And then now I've got contractors paying me $350 just to show up for 15, 20 minutes worth of time. Um, the other one that we get frequently too is other mold remediation companies. Just yesterday, I did they wanted a independent evaluation to make sure the mold that they cleared up is gone, and it was $350. They're professionals, so they don't want to just chit chat and sit there, and they don't want everything explained. It took me not even 15 minutes. Went in, took some swab samples, took photos, documented, looked around, couldn't see anything because it's all been whitewashed and cleared. And so uh, they're a great market to also kind of get to. And again, $350 for 15 minutes worth of work, not too shabby.
Yeah, the restoration companies are great. We do a lot of mold testing in that industry, and they'll do a pre-test and a post-test. And so they'll say, okay, pre-test, here's what you had. We've remediated everything. Here's a post-test. So we get 350 on the front and another 350 on the back, depending on the size of the project. Sometimes it's more, but 350 on the front, 350 on the back, and we're in and out. Same thing. They're professionals. And we know that when we come back the second time, it's going to be clear because these guys know what they're doing. Although every once in a while we'll get one that it tests negative when they're done with remediation. And but it's a way for these remediation companies. They will say, look, we use a third party company, so we're 100% transparent. And so go market. If you are doing mold, go market to remediation companies, get on their list, tell them I can get out there so fast, and make sure you can get out there fast because they get a call for a water thing. They're heading out there within a few hours.
Yeah, you need to be quick about it.
Yeah. Very quick. So they're headed out there. So if it's a midnight call, they might be out there starting to dry stuff out, but you might have to be out there the next day starting to do mold testing or maybe the day after or whatever they're going to start getting into it. But it's pretty quick. They're going to want you out there for the pre-test. And then, same thing with the post-test. So you better make sure you're agile on your mold testing. But yeah, we do the same thing. And man, I found a lot of success through the remediation companies here in town. And it's a great partnership. And so what we've done is when we find mold in home inspections, we send a referral list of like, hey, here's a couple of remediation companies we know that do a good job. And then then we're sending work back and forth to each other. And it's a really good partnership of what we have going here.
That's awesome. That's good.
Yeah. And then do you guys do asbestos testing?
Yeah. So I got my asbestos testing license. And again, this kind of goes down to knowing your numbers. And the asbestos license here in Oregon, it's a 2-day class, costs $600. So it takes a while to get to it. But in 2 years of having that license, we only brought in about $6,000 from that. And so we said, okay, if we minus, yeah, so if we have if we took the cost of both of those days that we could have been earning, which is 2,000 a day, so that's 4,000 plus the cost of the license plus the cost of the extra insurance, and rolled that into play, it really didn't make sense for us to actually keep with that license because we would get those requests once in a while, but the reality is it just wasn't enough to make sense to keep it. So and then it also requires every inspector to go through that training. And so I didn't want to put that on all my guys to have to do that. And then they only see a couple $100 over the span of a few years. It didn't make sense. So unfortunately, yeah,
of course,
decided not to.
The ROI is not there.
No,
yeah. But I was looking into it. Yeah. And so I know some guys that do it. And so we're looking into it right now. And I'm doing the same math right now. I'm doing the ROI on this. Like, okay, how many do I have to get? What's that going to look like with the investment that is? Because you have time investment of your people in training. You have the class cost of people in training. You have the lost revenue while people are in training. You have to add in all those different factors when you start to think, what is this actually going to cost me to get this dialed up? And is the revenue there? Is the work there? And can I get that work? Because, maybe the work is there, but then it's like, well, you got to go market that and you got to go grab that work. And there's a lot to it, but counting the cost before you really get into it. We're right in the middle of those calculations right now, actually, to add that into my business.
Well, and the important part of that is to always try, if you just stick with what everybody else is doing in your market, you're not differentiating yourself. You're no different than all those other inspectors. So if you find a niche, try it out. And worst case scenario, you got a tax write-off of maybe 1,000 or two and just getting things set up and stuff like that. But the reality is then you're going to hit something that is worthwhile. And so I got my asbestos license the same time I got my mold. And mold has paid off over and over and over again. I think we did almost 100 grand just in mold testing this last year, versus asbestos testing. I think it was like maybe $3,000 last year. But I wasn't sure which one was going to pay off and which one wasn't. And the next big thing that comes out, who knows what it's going to be. But as our society constantly is learning more about the building process, there's always going to be new things for us to start testing and new concepts and ideas. And if you're the one doing it and your competition isn't, you're going to be the one that gets a call. So try new things, go out, see what's going to work, measure your return on investment, and don't just give it a few months. For us, it's my license was good for 2 years. I'm just going to give it 2 years. Why not? And at the end of that
Right.
2 years, we said, okay, we're not going to do it. My license is up in November of this year. We're not going to renew it. There's no reason to have it. So check all those things. Another thing that we did was we bought a very smart indoor level that measures the height variation in the foundation to 16th of an
Oh,
inch, and it was fantastic. We marketed it as doing like indoor foundation mapping, where we can measure is your foundation moving, and then come back, have us come back out. We tried that as well. That equipment was about $2,000, and we made our money back on it, but it's just not something we really market anymore because we don't make the money off of it. So that
yep.
was another
But it's
thing
good
that
to keep trying.
failed.
Yeah, you got to keep
Yeah,
trying, keep trying, keep trying. And what might work for one person doesn't, like you tried asbestos. Asbestos didn't quite click for you. I'm doing my due diligence right now on asbestos. Asbestos might click for me. And you never know. And like the same thing, there's guys in my market that they buy all the radon equipment, but they just don't do that much radon testing. And then there's guys like me that I think I have 25 units, and they're pretty much always out. There's
yeah,
just
we have 10
constantly,
units.
for whatever reason, I clicked on radon, and I know other guys in town had it and struggled with it. You don't know what might click for you versus somebody else, and just keep trying stuff until you figure that out.
Well, exactly. And you look at some of the big, TikTok stars, like I'll use Cy Porter, for example. He markets himself just to new
Yep.
builds. Well, if you
Yep.
develop a package around homes pre 1980s, and you say, hey, for X amount, I'm going to do lead-based paint testing, I'm going to do asbestos testing, and we're going to do a home inspection, things like that. That right there is its own little niche that you then can market to.
Yep.
And it makes total sense to have all those extra certifications. And there's lots of people out there that's stuff that worries them. Um, so yeah,
Right. Well,
it's try new
that's a
things,
great
see what
marketing
works, see
point. I
what
love that.
doesn't.
But I love that idea of like, oh, the house is pre 1980. We have an environmental package. And because before 1980, there was things like lead based paint, there was asbestos, there was other things. We have an environmental package if you're interested in the older home to make sure that you're not, what your environmental risks are in this home. I love that. It's such a great marketing that your phone people can sell it. They go, oh, what year was the house built? 1972. Oh man. Okay. So you're going to see disclosures from your realtors, from your lenders, from title companies, and even from us that these risks are there. So if you want to do an environmental testing package, I love that, man. And it's an easy sell. And you're like, people go, wow, okay, it's another $600, whatever, to get the environmental testing done or whatever the package price might be. And some people might bite on it. They're going to be like, you know what? I do want to know. And it gives them peace of mind to know what they're dealing with.
Well, exactly. And like you said, a package. If you look at
Mm-hmm.
McDonald's is a billion, if not even $1 trillion industry now, just that one business. And it is built off the backs of people who didn't go to college, that are largely uneducated and just needed a summer job and things like that. They made their system so easy that anybody can do it. And now they're a billion-dollar
Yep.
company. And I think if we all were to sit down and talk about it, their food isn't all that great. It's the process that they have perfected. And that's what we do as inspectors. When you're looking at making an inspection company, don't give them a list of here's 50 different things you can have. Let me know what you want. It's develop those packages because they don't know why they should do an asbestos test. They have no idea if they should do a mold test or if they should do an in-depth comprehensive inspection or if they don't know any of that. And so creating those packages of saying, okay, here's A, B, C, which one do you feel most identifies to complete your goal? And if it's C, great, go for it. And so that's where I think a lot of inspectors and when we were starting our company, we did a lot of market research. So I'd go on all my competitors' website and I was seeing, okay, it's, here's the base price for an inspection. If you want me to go into crawl space, here's this price. If the house was pre 1978 or something, here's this price. And so they added all these prices to where it just felt like, okay, now you're nickel and diming, and I've got to pull out a calculator to figure out exactly, what my inspection price is. For us, we say, okay, probably 90% of the houses out here have crawl spaces. We're going to include going into the crawl space, not just accessing it, but actually exploring it. We're going to include all these other things. We're not going to worry about if it's old or if it's new, because as anybody who's done this for a while, you'll spend more time on a DR Horton new build than you will on a 1955 house that's been flipped. Even though one's a new build, it's just there's so much extra stuff for it. So we didn't say, okay, let's nickel and
Yeah.
dime things. It's here's package prices. This is what it's going to be. If you want individual pricing, go with our comprehensive and you can a la carte whatever you want. If you want a easy package that's going to accomplish your goals, go with our premier. It has what you want.
Well, and the best part of that is you can, when people are on the phone booking, you can just say our most popular option is the Premier package,
Yeah.
and it includes this, 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 and this, and this. Includes a free reinspection, whatever, however you phrase it. But he's like, this is our most popular package. If that isn't something that works for you, we can go a la carte and step down to this. But this is typically what people do. And then they go, well, okay, wait a minute. And you automatically just steer them right into, this is what most people do. This is our most popular package. And people will go, okay, yeah, that sounds great. And then you're selling more services and you're giving them a better peace of mind because you're exploring more things. You're running the sewer camera, you're doing the WDO. Almost everything we sell, we don't do packages yet, but I'm going to do packages after talking to you because we just do a la carte. But we found that almost every ticket we have, like 90+% of them have a sewer scope and a WDO and the home inspection. So it has all three of those is like on everything. And so to be able to say like, hey, we can go a la carte. Here's our standard package, and we have our premier package. And then to be able to standard includes the WDO, the sewer scope, and the home. And then it's like, this is what most people get. And then, or the premier, whatever you want to brand it as, right? But we were already looking at it, like, how can we package this and do this a better job with marketing just to get more stuff sold on it. And it helps, and it's helping people out, it's, and you're getting
definitely.
it, they're getting, if you added the a la carte up, you're actually going to get a little bit cheaper by packaging it.
Oh, yeah. So it's a better deal for our client if they take advantage of everything. But then
Yep.
the reality is they don't take advantage of everything. And so our profit margins are a little bit higher for the same amount of kind of work. But the other thing to kind of think about too is sewer scopes is a great example. How often do you go out and you can't perform a sewer scope because there's no access? And then you have to argue with the client of, okay, am I going to give you half your payback or do I have to credit you back? Well, as a package, it's included. There's no extra cost for doing a sewer scope versus not. It's all just part of the package. And so it makes it
Brilliant.
really easy when we have those conversations of, hey, we're going to have to pull a toilet. It's going to be an X amount fee. And I have to either bring in either myself or I have one other inspector that I feel comfortable in pulling toilets since that's outside of the normal scope. So or it's, here's what we believe it really is. Everything's draining right. The house, everything's level. The risk is relatively low. But it's really nice because, again,
I love that. That is really cool. I love that a lot. I'm definitely sold on doing packages. I think McDonald's might have pioneered that whole idea of like doing the meals, like I'm going to number one or number two or number three. And now all the fast food chains do it because they realize that you get the, whatever it is, the sandwich and the fries and the drink. And they're selling more product and it's better for the business. And it's what most people want anyway. And so I love how the restaurant industry, fast food started this thing. And now you see this in all kinds of industries. I think it's really smart and make it simple. Like one of the things we've always say is, how can we make this food smooth and friction free for our clients? How do we make it the phone call as friction free as possible? We want it to be a smooth experience from people calling in, from the reminder system, from the emails, from contracts to payment. It's like, and remove any friction that we possibly can. Have those skids greased as much as possible. And the smoother that transaction is, the better it's going to be for everybody.
no, you're absolutely right. And what
And
you're also
packages kind of make that happen.
exactly. And just to kind of build on that, when you have systems in place, look at other alternative methods like Angie Leads and Thumbtacks. We love those. I know a lot of inspectors hate them, and that's because they don't have a system in place to qualify that lead and to close it. We love them because about 70% of all Angie leads we close. And that's because within 5 minutes of getting that lead, we're on the phone with them closing it. And so by the time that my competition, who
Yeah.
also paid for that lead, is coming to call them, they're saying, oh, no, thank you. We've already got an inspection. So those type of services work great, but you have to have a system in place. And when you're doing inspections, you can't be the one closing those cells. So you need to have either a call center set up, or you need to have a virtual assistant or somebody else being able to handle those calls, because the first one to get that call is usually the one that they're going to go with.
Absolutely. And I used to be an electrical contractor, and I had a whole division of my business that was just doing security cameras in commercial buildings. We had security cameras and access control. So we did that kind of stuff as well. And so we bought leads off of, it wasn't Angie's List. This is years ago. It was a different company. I can't remember the name of it, but the name of the game was like, when that lead comes in, you call immediately. And then you go, this is what we're doing, and this is what our average price is, and then you get on, the faster you can get on it, and the smoother the thing is. And we had packages back then. You want 4 cameras, 8 cameras, 16 cameras, and we had packages ready to go. And we were able to pre-sell those things right over the phone with people, and then get it scheduled right there. And so then the next contractor would call up and be like, well, I'd like to come out and take a look at it so I can give you a quote. And they're like, well, I mean, I already got a price. In fact, I already signed up. And you got to close those right away if you do the Angie Lead stuff.
Well, especially with what we do, home inspections have a very, very
Yep.
timely deadline. And if they can't get a hold of you that first day, you're not going to close that sale that second day. And so they've already found somebody. And when they're using those lead generation sites like Angie and Thumbtack, they use those in combination of everything else. And so if they're seeing your Google ad when they type home inspectors and they are putting in a request through Angie, all those extra lines of marketing and everything like that just add more credibility and make it easier for you to close them.
That's true, man. That's true. In fact, today on in IEB, I was on one of the calls, and we were talking about that exact process. And somebody was talking about phone systems, right? And how your phone system needs to be dialed the right way so that you don't have to push a bunch of buttons to get to somebody. You got to make it smooth and easy. And your phone system has to work. And somebody was telling a horror story of how their company phone system went down for 7.5 hours on a Friday. And they figured out that, and this is a large inspection company in Texas. I think it was Brian and Brian in Texas. That was their large company. They realized that downtime, they probably lost $30,000 in inspections because there was no way for someone to answer the phone because the phone system went down. And so it just shows that, like, you have to have your systems tight and like, they don't even spend $30,000 a year on their phone system, but yet they lost that much revenue because the system itself failed. And it was talking about how we were talking about it today, about how, like, your systems and processes have to be smooth and airtight, and it has to run just perfect because you have to be able to answer the phone and close the deal on that phone call in order for it to work right.
Absolutely. And the concept that you're talking about is called business continuity. And it's basically when you ask the question, if, then what? And for a small firm, if you think about it, it's okay, if your flashlight dies because the batteries are dead, how well are you going to do your inspection? Or are you going to now have to drive to the local 7-Eleven, get new batteries? How much would those batteries have been worth if you had it with you? 2 to 3 times as much. And so, before we met, we were talking about my van. I got one of these big Amazon vans for doing inspections. Why? Well, I've got a drawer just filled with different types of batteries. So if my moisture meter goes out, or if my, little I don't know what it's called, but for measuring the air movement and fans goes out, I've got everything I need here, so I don't have to make that trip, or and lose that extra time. Um, but yeah, that's when you're looking at everything. That's also the next important step, is planning for the things that you are just going to inevitably pop up. And so you've developed your plan, you're put your plan into process, into practice, and now you're having to say, okay, if then what? So if COVID happens, all over again, how are you going to do inspections? If the market drops, how are you going to stay busy? If your software program goes down, how are you going to do an inspection? So that is, after you've set up your business, you're now refining the business by asking that question and identifying those areas that you can implement new little tricks and things in place to keep your business going, even with. Sewer scopes are a great example. We just had one break. I'd keep an extra sewer scope. And so even though we're waiting for a new sewer scope to come in, we're not having to cancel those clients or reschedule them or move them around. It's we just have the inconvenience of now having to pick up a sewer scope and take it over to them, to the inspector. And so, uh, uh, as you're scaling your business, that's the next kind of phase of identifying those things that impact your business and then plugging it and coming up with new systems and processes to make it so if something were to happen, you have the plan already to implement it to keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, right, the equipment that's down, that's a great analogy, great story. Like whether it's a flashlight or it's a sewer camera or whatever it might be, your downtime is the part that really kills you. And so you have to have a plan in place for everything. Like when my guys get out, I buy vans that are pretty new. And I won't buy old ones because that key, when you turn it, that engine has to start because there's a load of work that has to happen that day. And if the van doesn't start, it creates chaos for the whole day. And so I need vans that are well maintained. We have to keep up on maintenance. We have to keep that stuff. You got to keep extra flashlights and screwdrivers and sewer scopes, and you got to have all the extra equipment on hand and have your backup plan ready. Because like you say, like, oh, the sewer camera doesn't work. Well, now what? Now you got to go drive back to the office, go get the backup camera, and then drive back out. And if you're an hour away, there's 2 hours of your day that got wasted. And so 2 hours a day are wasted. And like, there goes profit. There goes, I mean, it's like, the dominoes start falling really fast. And it's the downtime that kills you. So being able to put together your systems and processes, like you say, in that way. I mean, I love how your mind works. I love how you're talking about this. This just makes so much sense for anybody that wants to scale your business and scale it intentionally. Like this is the kind of stuff you need to be thinking about and talking about, man. I love it.
Yeah, this is exciting for me. I always love talking about my business and because when you start talking, even just in our conversation here, I've started kind of getting other ideas like, oh wait, well I should start refining this a little bit, doing this a little bit differently, and coming up with other little ideas. And so it's really important to be a part of a mastermind, to be a part of IEB, or just to find somebody else that you can just unload your ideas with and bounce those off, and it just really helps spur that creativity.
Absolutely, man. Like I'm a big advocate for finding a group of people, whether they're, and whether it's an inspection specific one or not. Like if IEB is fantastic, I'm a huge fan of IEB, but I also know not IEB is not for everyone. And for maybe you find a mastermind group in your local community of other business owners that are in the home services industry. They don't even have to be in inspections, and they're going to understand the workflow that needs to happen. They're going to understand some of the things that are going on. And so finding groups, having these conversations on a regular basis is super important. And if you find a different group, find a different group, find what works for you. If you want to come check out IEB, I think it's a fantastic organization. It's helped my business a lot. And I find a lot of great conversations happening there. And so, wherever you're at, and especially if you're in the beginning of your business experience, finding a group is very important in my perspective. If you've always just been a technician, and you're just now venturing into business ownership, it's going to get you turbocharged and running way faster than if you're just trying to figure it out on your own. It's something that is going to really help, especially those who are starting to scale and starting to grow. Guys that are newer in business, man, it is a lifeline, and it's going to help you grow quicker, faster, smarter, and make less mistakes because you're learning from people like us that already made the mistakes.
Exactly. And earlier where you were talking about business continuity, if you're a solo person, the number one thing you can do is find another inspector to partner with. Think about going through all that stress, all those hours, the late nights, all the networking, only to get a call from your best realtor and they say, I need an inspection in the next 3 days. And you look at your calendar and you're like, hey, all my systems and processes worked. I'm completely booked. I can't help you. But let me have you call this other guy. And that's we've got a great inspector here, Ken. He's referred a lot of clients, and that's exactly what we were doing, and we still do that too. Is we get that phone call from a really good client of ours that we want to keep that relationship with. We don't want them trying out other inspectors, so we want to maintain it by referring them to our referral, our guy who we know will take care of them, but most importantly, will refer them back to us the next time they call.
Oh, that's a great idea. I love that, and building that, and then you build that relationship with somebody else's business owner in your community, in your net, in your market, and
Mhm.
then you end up, because really there's enough work for everybody, and there really is, and being able to be friends with your competition. I'm friends with most of the competitors in my town, and I tell you, it's been a huge advantage. I see them out in public, and we get to commiserate together. And when things are going well, we're all high fiving and we're excited. And when things are a little bumpy, or and this is what it is. You have a tough client, you have a tough customer. Maybe you have a complaint that's getting out of control, because it happens.
Mhm.
You call one of your buddies in town. You're like, oh my god, I can't believe I'm dealing with this. And then we laugh and we cry, and then we encourage each other. And then, all right, man, good luck with that, buddy. But it's nice to have somebody else to be able to who's in your shoes, to be able to like relate to and bounce ideas off of. I mean, it's a great thing to do. I love that. Even finding local people is good.
Oh, exactly. And we have to look at it like this too. If your goal is to be a solo technician, which is fantastic, if that's what your goal is, but you also have to plan for the inevitable. You're going to be sick. You're going to want to take vacation. All of that time and energy that you put
Yeah.
in your business, you need to have a second person for you just to maintain those. That way you can go on vacation. That way you can do those things. And you find somebody who has a similar goal. They're not wanting to expand. They want to keep us small. They want to set their own schedule, and then you help them when they go on vacation, and they help you. And so it makes it to where you're not starting over at square one. There was a fundraiser I remember seeing where a guy, an inspector, fell off a ladder, and they were doing a fundraiser for him because he broke his leg and he's not going to be able to do inspections for a little while. Well, after a month or two, all of those relationships are now vanished. They're gone. All the time he spent. So if he could sit behind a desk and simply say, "Hey, I'm going to start doing your inspection coordination," and start referring those out, getting those then, and then he's still maintaining that relationship, helping the clients get an inspection. So when he's healed up, he already still has that relationship in place. And so I think if that's your goal, that is the number one thing you should be doing, is find somebody who's like-minded with you, that you can talk to, that you can bounce ideas off, share clients, and go back and forth with.
Man, Kurvin, that's a great idea too. I love that. I'll be honest, man. There's been a lot of great ideas on this call, and like a lot of really good advice, I think, for a lot of people in a lot of phases of their business. And it's been good having you on the show. If someone wants to reach out and like ask you more, maybe they connected with you and they're like, man, I want to learn more. I want to connect with this guy. What's the best way for someone to get a hold of you?
Yeah, the best way to get a hold of me is going to be email. That's Kurvin at oneuglyduck.com. And one is spelled out.
And it's Kurvin. Is that Kurb? Sorry, Kurvin.
That's correct.
All right. That sounds good, man. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been a really fantastic conversation, and it's actually inspired me to look at my packages and see what happens.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for having me on. And anybody out there listening, reach out. Let's toss some ideas back and forth, and let's grow each other's businesses.
Thanks, man. I'll see you around.
Bye.